Hello student. In this lecture we want to study again the basic term. In last videos we have been already study about the some basic term like a system, surrounding, या फिर boundary, homogeneous system, heterogeneous system, open system, isolated system, closed system. उसके बाद में properties देखा अपन extensive properties, intensive properties. Now today's session we want to study again the two type of a function. One is called a state function and another one is called a path function. What is mean by state function? That is a property which depends on only initial and final state of the system. या फिर we can say that is the state function, a property which depends on a state of system and not on the path followed by the system, that is called a state function. जैसा for example system going from A to B. The state A is described by using known value of a pressure, temperature, volume, number of moles, and these functions are called a state function. या फिर state B is described by P2, T2, V2, N2, that is the known values of a pressure, temperature, volume, number of moles. These functions are called a state function which are used to describe the state of system, that is called a state function. और path function का मतलब a function या फिर a property which depends on the path followed by the system and not on the state, that is called a path function. जैसा फॉर एग्जाम्पल अभी देखा अपन ने प्रेशर, वॉल्यूम, टेम्परेचर, नंबर ऑफ मोल्स, या फिर इंटरनल एनर्जी, या फिर एंथैल्पी, या फिर एंट्रोपी, या फिर फ्री एनर्जी. दिस आर द थर्मोडायनेमिक्स फंक्शंस आर अ स्टेट फंक्शन. लेकिन ख्याल में रखने का वर्क डन एंड द हीट, दीज टू आर ए पाथ फंक्शन, डिपेंड्स ऑन द पाथ. अब कैसे वो नेक्स्ट वीडियोस में देखेंगे अपन. तो ये हो गया अबाउट द पाथ फंक्शन या फिर स्टेट फंक्शन. या फिर अपन और उसको क्लियर करेंगे. जैसा बहुत सारे अपन ने टेम्पल देखे ऐसे टेकड़ी के ऊपर रहते हैं, तो नंबर ऑफ वेज उसको ऊपर जाने के लिए, जैसा पहला है बाय यूजिंग स्टेयरकेस, दूसरा बाय यूजिंग रोड, या फिर तीसरा डायरेक्ट अपन प्लेन से भी आ सकते. नो मैटर खर्चा कितना रहा उससे कोई मतलब नहीं. अपने को क्या है, फ्रॉम इनिशियल स्टेट टू फाइनल स्टेट जाने का है, दैट इज वन स्टेट टू अनदर स्टेट, एंड दीज फंक्शंस आर कॉल्ड ए स्टेट फंक्शन. डज नॉट डिपेंड्स ऑन द पाथ फॉलोड बाय द सिस्टम. तो ये होगा अबाउट द स्टेट फंक्शन एंड पाथ फंक्शन. अब उसके बाद में नेक्स्ट पॉइंट देखेंगे अपन थर्मोडायनामिक इक्विलिब्रियम. तो थर्मोडायनामिक इक्विलिब्रियम, अगेन दिस इज द इंपॉर्टेंट टर्म. थर्मोडायनामिक इक्विलिब्रियम का मतलब दैट इज द थर्मोडायनामिक प्रॉपर्टीज डज नॉट वेरी विद द टाइम. Thermodynamic properties do not vary with the time, then the system is said to be in a thermodynamic equilibrium. If the temperature remain constant, that is there is no transfer of heat from one end to another end, does not vary with the time, then the system is said to be in a thermal equilibrium. If there is no mechanical work done by the system या फिर on the system, that is the pressure volume does not vary with the time, then the system is said to be in a mechanical equilibrium. And if the number of moles या फिर chemical composition constant does not vary with the time, then the system is said to be in a chemical equilibrium. So there are three types of a equilibrium. Thermal equilibrium, in which the temperature does not vary with the time. Mechanical, no mechanical work done by the system या फिर on the system. And chemical, that is the chemical composition does not vary with the time, then the system is said to be in a thermodynamic equilibrium. Clear? अब उसके बाद में देखने का अपने को the number of properties, the number of processes. what is meant by process? Process means a path or a way by which system going from one state to another state, that is called a process. या फिर we can say initial state to final state called a process. Process a path or a way या फिर direction by which system going from one state to another state called a process. अब पहले very important process, one is called adiabatic process. One is called adiabatic process. अब what is mean by adiabatic process? Adiabatic process में क्या होता है? A process in which system cannot exchange heat with the surrounding. System cannot exchange heat with the surrounding. So Q remain constant while there is a change in temperature, that is called a adiabatic process. So in this what happen? Delta T varies. अगर delta T varies होता है तो internal energy is a function of a temperature, so delta U also varies. That is called a adiabatic process. तो adiabatic process का मतलब क्या? A process in which system cannot exchange it with the surroundings so that the temperature changes. Such process is called a adiabatic process. इसका मतलब this process is thermally isolated. This process is thermally isolated और उसके बाद में generally it takes place in a insulation. It takes place in a insulated या फिर isolated system में. तो ये हो गया about the adiabatic process. Another process that is called a isothermal process. Another process, isothermal process. The isothermal process में system can exchange heat with the surrounding. System can exchange heat with the surroundings so that the temperature remain constant. Temperature does not vary. As the temperature remain constant, internal energy is also constant, and thus the system is not thermally isolated. Not thermally isolated because here system can exchange it with the surrounding. So system is not thermally isolated, or generally it takes place in a closed vessel. Generally it takes place in a closed vessel, that is called a isothermal process. तो फिर से एक बार definition याद रखने का. Adiabatic process, a process in which system cannot exchange it with the surrounding so that the temperature varies. अब isothermal में system can exchange heat with the surrounding so that the temperature remain constant. तो ये होगा about adiabatic process or isothermal process. Again one more, that is called isobaric process. What is meant by isobaric process? That is the process in which the pressure remain constant. A process in which pressure remain constant, that is the change in pressure equal to 0. There is no change in pressure. So it takes place in presence of a constant atmospheric pressure. So generally it is carried out in a open vessel. उसके बाद में next one is called, that is called isochoric process. That is called isochoric process. Now what is mean by isochoric process? Again here volume remain constant, that is the change in volume equal to 0. क्या आ जाएगा? Change in volume equal to 0. अगर volume fix है तो generally it takes place in a closed vessel. It takes place in a closed vessel. तो ये हो गया adiabatic process, isothermal process, isobaric process और isochoric process. तो ख्याल में रखने का important point, in adiabatic process Q equal to 0. In isothermal process the change in temperature equal to 0. In isobaric process change in pressure equal to 0. In isochoric process change in volume equal to 0. Suppose when a graph is plotted between pressure and the volume, so how can you indicate this process? जैसा फॉर एग्जांपल पहली प्रोसेस लेंगे, समझो अपन आइसोकोरिक प्रोसेस. तो आइसोकोरिक प्रोसेस में वॉल्यूम रिमेन कांस्टेंट. तो ये हो गया समझो वॉल्यूम रिमेन कांस्टेंट, सच इज कॉल्ड आइसोकोरिक प्रोसेस. इसको क्या बोलेंगे अपन? आइसोकोरिक प्रोसेस, दैट इज द वॉल्यूम रिमेन कांस्टेंट. अब उसके बाद में आइसोबैरिक प्रोसेस, तो आइसोबैरिक प्रोसेस में क्या जाएगा, प्रेशर रिमेन कांस्टेंट, ये होगा आइसोबैरिक प्रोसेस। उसके बाद में दिस इज कॉल्ड आइसोथर्मल प्रोसेस, इसको क्या बोलेंगे अपन, आइसोथर्मल प्रोसेस। और जो ज्यादा वैरी होती है तो दैट इज कॉल्ड एडियाबैटिक प्रोसेस। तो ये होगा अबाउट आइसोबैरिक प्रोसेस, pressure remain constant, yoga isoporic process, volume remain constant, isothermal process, temperature remain constant, adiabatic process, that is the Q remain constant. तो ये होगा about the different types of a processes. Okay, thank you.